Welcome back. Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Creatress of Freedom podcast. I am Annie. I am your host, and I am very excited to be dropping on in with you today and sharing the update on the situation around my love life. If you have not yet listened to the previous episode around he booked a trip to Greece to take me out for dinner, then I highly recommend that you go back and you have a little listen to that episode because that's where it started. And I'm ready to give you the update on where we're at and what has evolved since then. So I'm really excited to drop on in and have this conversation with you and share with you where we're at. So let's back it up because it's been a few weeks now since he was even here. It has been so he left. It's actually been nearly a month because he left like the 2nd of April. And so let's back it up to when he arrived. So before he arrived, we had been having some really, really beautiful, deep conversations on the phone, just like over the phone, sometimes video calls, sometimes audio calls. And they were really, really, really beautiful, really beautiful. And there was definitely a deeper connection that was happening. We were having some really deep conversations about marriage and about children and about how you want to raise children and what your beliefs are in living and just all of those things that I think we don't actually necessarily have those conversations. Well, I know I never did in any of the relationships that I started to get into. Not once did I ask, was this person matching my values? Was this person, where did they stand on this? What was their viewpoint on this? What was this? What was this? Like none of that. You just kind of you start seeing each other. Before you know it, you're having sex, and before you know it, you've moved in, and before you know it, years down the track, you're like, shit, where did that time go? So this felt very different because we were really having deeper conversations. And I think the fact that he was in Australia and I was here, we couldn't necessarily rush it as such. And so there was some really beautiful, deep conversations. And I think I was definitely feeling more attracted to him. I could feel that he was maturing compared to when I, spent time with him when he was 22. I was like 23 when we went to Hawaii. And, I could feel myself definitely feeling more attracted to him. And then he arrived. And so I went and picked him up from the airport. And my heart was racing. I was so nervous because I had not seen him for like 12 years. And just the warm embrace of his hug that he gave me. He had his hand on the back of my head, and he had his hand around my waist, and we literally stayed in that cuddle position, that hug position for I don't know, like 10 minutes or so. It was really beautiful to be in the presence of a masculine again. It has been a long time since I have had that type of connection with a masculine again. And so it felt really, really beautiful. It felt safe. It felt familiar. And it just was really, really beautiful. And so I felt this feeling in my body of, whoa, this could work. This could work. Anyway, as time went on, we continued having deeper conversations. We spent a lot of time together over the 2 weeks that he was here. I did break my celibacy after almost 2 years, but there's no one else that I would have rather broken my celibacy with because this was someone that, I valued. This was someone that I trusted. This was someone that I knew who he was, and I felt safe with him. And the there was a deeper meaning of I'm choosing to break my celibacy based on that this potentially could be my forever person. And so when I chose to break that celibacy, I would never do that from a place of just like going and having sex for the sake of having sex, because I genuinely feel that there is an energetic exchange when it comes to being intimate with someone, and more so for the woman, because the woman is being penetrated, and so the energy, whatever his energy is actually going inside of you as a woman. And so I see sex as like really, really sacred, and I would never just have sex just for the sake of having sex. Like there has to be a deeper reason for me to open myself up, literally, like that, in that sense. And so yeah, this really beautiful connection of what we were, when we were being intimate with each other, and it felt really beautiful in the moment, and the conversations that we were having, and there was definitely a really beautiful connection that was between us. And whilst there was this really beautiful connection throughout the 2 weeks that he was here, it was like I was a little bit in conflict with myself. There was parts of me that was unsure. There was parts of me that really loved him deeply and really cared for him deeply. And I was like, yeah, okay, like I think we can make this work. And we had conversations about what would it look like if we were to continue to do this. And I had said that I didn't want to go back to Australia yet. I was not interested in moving back, and he was more than happy to pack up his life and come in and live here. We didn't know what it was going to look like. We didn't know how we were going to make it work based on visa situations. He was really limited on what he was able to um, do when it comes to a visa situation. So we talked about, well, maybe he comes and he does 3 months here, and then we go somewhere else and we do 3 months there, and then we go somewhere else and we do 3 months there, and then we can come back to Greece. And so we started kind of like planning things out and talking about, what the future could look like. And whilst I was like trying really hard to stay open to the possibilities of where this could go, there was always this like little part of me that again was just in conflict. And I was like, oh, I just don't know. Like there's something that just doesn't feel right here. And I was like, maybe it's because I'd been hurt. Maybe it's because I'd been in relationships before. And maybe it's just because my walls are up and it's going to take time to trust. And so I kind of ran with that story for a little bit. And I was like, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it's all based on. And even though like I was telling myself that, I still was like, yeah, but there's something that's I'm just not sure about. But I trusted that whatever was unfolding was exactly what was supposed to unfold. It was for my highest good. I truly, truly believe in there is no coincidences in life, and that people come into our life sometimes for a season, sometimes for a lifetime. It's not up to us to decide. It's whatever the lesson is that needs to be learned in it. So I'm like, you know what, if this is what's happening for now, like I'm gonna roll with it. And so I did. And there was like really beautiful moments where he held a lot of space for me, where I shared a lot of deeper personal things in person with him than what I did over the phone, and vice versa. Like we definitely had this beautiful connection where he was really softening and he was really opening up to things that had gone on in his life and things that had gone on in my life. And we both were just like, wow, this is crazy. And we're both like, can't believe that we've come back around again, after all of this time, being together, being in love at like 14, and then reconnecting at 18, reconnecting again at like 23, and now reconnecting again at like 36. Like, wow. And there was a part of me that was like, wow, like this is like a beautiful love story, like this is every girl's dream to have this love story, and I've got it. Like this is the love story. And even though like I was saying those things, there was this part of me that was also like, yeah, but like there was this but. And I just kept putting it down to, I think it's just that I'm scared. Like I'm scared. And that's what I kept telling myself. And the more people that I kept talking to, that I kept saying like, oh, I just feel like there's this something that's just not right. Like I don't know. The more people kept reconfirming to me, oh, it's just because you're scared, it's because you've been hurt, it's because of, bad relationships that you've had, and you just got your guard up and you don't want to hurt yourself. And so I was like, okay, yeah, like maybe that's what it is. And I'm really good at zooming out and trying to see things from different perspectives, and trying to like go deeper and be like, well, what could this mean, or what if it was about this, or what if it was about this. And before he left, I had said to him that I loved him, and I think I've always loved him, and I think he will always have this really special place in my heart, because we shared similar backgrounds. We grew up in the church together. He was my first love, and so I truly do believe that he will always hold a special place in my heart, no matter what. Anyway, and so I was like, you know what, like I'm willing to give this a go. And so I had said to him, okay, let's give it a go, let's see how it happens. And he was like, well, I can't come back, I can't get back to Greece until, at that stage it was about July. And I was like, that's okay, I had a girlfriend that was coming, is coming soon, and she's here for a few weeks, so we've got girl time and stuff like that. And then you'll be back here, and maybe be here for a few months. And then it was like, well, what am I going to do for work? And there was lots of components and parts that needed to kind of be put into place, but we both were kind of like, I think we can make this work. Anyway, so he left, he went home. I cried. I was so sad, because it was so nice to have someone that was familiar here. I haven't hid since I've been here that it does feel quite lonely, and I do feel quite isolated at times. So to have someone that was like really familiar and really safe, and just like have a friend to explore the island and to go out for dinner with, and to laugh and just watch movies and all of the stuff, was like so fun. And it was just really nice to be in the company with someone else as well. And there was no pressure. We went on a beautiful date. He picked me up, he drove me to dinner, and we watched the sunset. And he bought me some beautiful gifts. He also bought me a six packet of Tim Tams and a jar of Vegemite. Like, hell yeah, totally here for that. And it was like really, really beautiful. That was my first date that I had ever been on in 36 years. I'd never been on a date before. And he really put in an effort and really made it feel really special. And, I felt like I genuinely like had this beautiful, like unconditional love from this man. It was really, really beautiful. And just after different things that we'd shared with each other, like there was definitely this beautiful connection that we had. And so we were like, yep, okay, well, let's make this work. He was obviously head over heels, because that was the idea. He was hoping that that was how it was going to go before he landed here. And so, he was like, I want to marry you. You're the only woman I want to be with. You're the only one I want to have children with. I've never said those words to anybody else. You are literally like the woman that got away, and now I've got you back in my life, and I'm just so happy. And he was head over heels with the entire situation. And so I watched him pack his bag, and I sent him on his way, and told him that I loved him, and told him that I guess I'll see you like when you get back here. And so he left, and then I just started to tune into how I was feeling, and tune into, was I making the right decision? And there was a part of me that didn't feel this like not anxiety, but like this, like when you first start seeing someone, like you feel this excitement, you feel this like almost like this adrenaline run through your body. And like I wasn't having these feelings. And originally I thought, well, maybe I don't have those feelings because this is actually what's normal, right? Like maybe that's why I'm not having these like butterflies in the tummy. And yes, I'm a lot older now. I'm 36 now. So what I'm looking for in a relationship is very different to what, I was looking for when I was 20. And I've also gone on such a really big, big spiritual journey of learning how to trust myself and love myself and be okay on my own as well. And so there has been so much of that that's also happened. And so I've done a lot of healing that the partner that I'm calling in now versus when I was in my 20s is so different, because I have healed, and I don't need the validation from this relationship. I am looking for someone to build a life with, and someone that's of an equal match kind of vibe, and not someone that I need to look after me, or, any of that. So what I'm looking for now is like so different in a relationship. So I was like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense as to maybe why I don't have these feelings, because maybe this is healthy and this is how it's supposed to feel. And so I tried to like justify all of these doubts that I was having inside my body, that my body was sharing. And I was like, it's just because I'm hurt. I've, you know, I've been in shitty relationships, and so it's taking time for me to drop my walls down and to trust. And I was really, really honest with him about how I was feeling. And I was saying, like, I love you dearly, but like there is this part of me that's just not sure. And I don't know if I'm not sure because it's early days, or if I'm not sure because like it's actually not meant to be. And so I was being super, super transparent with him and being really honest along the entire journey, from the moment that we started connecting in January, re-chatting again, to, the moment that he went home. I was being really, really honest. And he was being amazing about it. He was not getting defensive or anything. He was like, well, that's okay. I know that you're not sure, and I don't want to be with anybody else. And so I'm prepared to wait until, you are sure. And I think with time you will become more sure. And I was like, yeah, like maybe, I guess so. And then I just started to notice like how I was feeling in his energy when we were having conversations. And I just felt like my energy was a little bit off. And I felt like I was feeling more like exhausted after getting off the phone. And I noticed a few times of just different conversations that we were having, just the the conversations that we were having just didn't feel good in my body. And I started to notice how different we were thinking in life, and just where our different mindsets were, and just how different we wanted to live life as well. And so all of these were kind of like contributing to my doubts and my part of me that wasn't feeling sure. And I chatted with some really, really close girlfriends that I know can give me both sides of the coin, right? They can sit there and buy into the story that I'm sitting with, but then they can also play devil's advocate, and they can also be like, but what if like this is actually what's happening? What if this is you trying to close off a love that, you feel like maybe you're not worthy of, And so I sat with all of that, and I was like, is this me thinking that I'm not worthy of his love? Is this me like shutting it down and like pushing him away? And, I sat with every scenario that you could possibly think of. And I couldn't figure out why I still was in conflict with myself, because ultimately, if this is the person that I'm choosing to spend the rest of my life with, why am I in conflict? I shouldn't be in conflict. And I was like, this is something doesn't feel right here. Like, why am I not listening to this? And then a few of the conversations that we had on the phone, there were also some things that didn't sit well with me in just different things. I'm not going to get into it on the podcast episode for numerous reasons. I want to respect his privacy in case he chooses to listen to this episode, which is very possible. But also, um, this isn't necessarily about him. This is about me and where I'm at. And, I had said to him that I just felt like the person that I had in my mind of who was going to be my forever person was potentially going to be the person that had already gone on their inner journey, had gone on their spiritual awakening, had done some mindset work. And, like I've done all of that on my own. And I truly think that that's really powerful for individuals to do a lot of that healing work on their own, because there's no outside influences and you really get to learn a lot about yourself. And he was just starting that part of his journey. And I've been in relationships where that has happened, and it doesn't feel good for me because of lots of reasons. But the main one is because it just feels like we're a little bit disconnected. And it feels like I step into, and maybe this is some inner work that I get to do around myself, but it feels like I step more into being a coach, and I'm like trying to help them navigate what they're going through. And that feels like parenting. And I do not want to be in a parenting relationship. I want to be in a partnership. And so there were quite a lot of times where I really noticed that we were on different levels. And I think that this was one of my criterias of my non-negotiables of, when you start to feel really ready to bring in and attract your partner, they say you get really clear on like what your qualities are that you're looking for in a partner. Like, who is the person? Like, what are the qualities? What are your non-negotiables that you're not willing to negotiate on? Like, get really, really clear on what they are, and then you also have to become those things, right? Because law of attraction only works if you choose to be that person. You're not going to magnetize all of those qualities in a person to you if you're not being those things. And so then it's like, now you get to be all of those things, and then you surrender to the universe, or you put it out there, and then you wait for that person to become the vibrational match, because you both have gone off, done the work, and now you get to know and trust when that timing is right, that you get to come together. And so, I had this idea of this list of like who I thought my ideal partner would be, because, I learned a lot from my last relationship, and I was like, these are the things that are really important to me. And I truly think that in order for us to, thrive and grow together and build a life together, like these are the things that I need in order to flourish and in order for us to flourish as a couple. And so I just started to notice that, maybe we were on different pages a little bit. And there's a few things that happened that made me feel like I really just needed to have some space, because I felt like I couldn't get clarity. I felt like I couldn't tap into myself. I felt really disorientated. I felt really ungrounded. And I was still meditating daily. I was still doing all my rituals daily, even once he had gone home, but yet I still felt ungrounded. And so I had actually asked him if I could have a few days without us having any contact with each other, because I felt like I needed some space to get clear on myself, and I didn't need any outside influences like inside my energy. And so I stopped talking to anybody else about this relationship and about how I was feeling. And I grabbed my journal and I journaled several pages. Like, I'm talking like between 20 and 50 pages. I journaled out, and I was writing out different scenarios, and I was like, if this happened, like, could it be this, and could it be this, and like maybe this is it, and like where does that come from? Maybe that's from my childhood. And I've been journaling for a very, very long time now, so I feel like journaling is a really big part of my processing, and it really helps me like sift through all the bullshit, and it helps me really get clear on like where I actually am at. Anyway, one of the questions that I asked myself was, if this person I didn't have childhood attachment to, would have I given this person the opportunity to go on a date? And my answer was no. And I was like, ooh, interesting. Because what this means is that this was a bond that was potentially toxic, because there was a childhood attachment to it. And it wasn't necessarily that this was the ideal person that I wanted to spend my life with. And so when I wrote that out, it was like a light bulb kind of went off in my head, and I was like, interesting. And then I found myself also journaling like, but like, what if there's somebody else out there that is more suited to me? What if someone is already on this spiritual path and has done the healing on themselves, and, we can just kind of complement each other, and, like maybe like, what if? And I was like, I shouldn't be thinking the what ifs if this was my person. And then after I did all of this journaling over these few days, this old post came up. It was from a couple of years ago. You know how Facebook does Facebook memories, right? So it was a post that I had shared on my personal page, and it was about um, my journey of like the previous 9 years. And it was talking about like really big milestones that I had gone through, from leaving my long term relationship uh, when I was in Victoria, to then meeting Troy and the kids and being welcomed into the family. And then, the business side of things, going on network marketing and winning awards, and then having the salon, and then being like almost ready to go bankrupt with the salon and walk away from the salon, to then my another next long-term relationship starting to fall apart, and then packing up and moving, from leaving that long-term relationship and then moving to Queensland, and going on this big spiritual journey. And at the bottom of this post, it was huge. It was like, I was rereading, it was like an essay, and I was like, wow, Annie, you really poured your heart out in that post. And I was reading the very bottom of it, and it said, at every single moment in my life over these past 9 years, logically none of it made sense, right? But there was this feeling, this deep inner knowing, this feeling that I can't describe, of just knowing that this was what I needed to do. And when I read this post, it was almost like a remembering. It was like this remembering of like, don't ignore the feeling, Annie. The feeling is where you know whether you're aligned or misaligned. And as I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, these were really big milestones, and none of it made sense logically. Leaving a long term relationship to find myself, the business going bankrupt, but then investing 23 grand into a mentor. Like, none of it made sense. But there was this deep feeling of just knowing. And after I read that post, I was like, why is this situation any different? There's this feeling that I have of knowing that this is potentially not my person, but yet I'm pretending like I'm confused. Why am I doing that? Why am I logically trying to think of this scenario and this situation and find the solution and the answer from my logical mind, when I know that it's never going to come from my logical mind? It always comes from our heart space. It always comes from the feeling, because it's an inner knowing. It is like the North Star. When you follow that inner knowing, you just know that you're never going to be off the right path. And it's exactly the same with how I made my move to Greece. It was this knowing. Logically, none of it made sense. Selling everything I owned, packing up one bag, one suitcase, flying across the world to a place I'd never been before, didn't know anyone, to start a whole new life. Like, what the fuck? Like, logically, that makes no sense. But it was such a deep feeling that I just knew, right? I just knew this feeling, and I've learned to trust this feeling. And so when it came to this situation with this guy, I was like, why am I not trusting this feeling? And I truly believe it's because deep down, this little girl inside of me, this 14-year-old girl, wanted the love story. She wanted that to be her happy ending. She wanted so desperately for this 14-year-old love to be the 36-year-old love that comes back around. Like, she wanted that. But the 36-year-old version of me doesn't want that. She wants something else. She wants different. And I was like, this, I have to listen to this. And I always had this motto, and I've had it for the last few years, that if it's not a fuck yes, then it's a fuck no. And so I was like thinking about this like situation in this relationship, and I was like, this is not a fuck yes. Not at all. And so therefore, Annie, like, why are we sitting on the fence about this? And so then I was like thinking about the whole, well, maybe it's because you're her. And I was like, but is it? Because let's play devil's advocate here, because I'm very good at that, and I'm very good at seeing things from different perspectives. And I was like, Yes, I was hurt in previous relationships. Yes, I had some fucked up relationships previously, but I've done a lot of healing around all of that. And I genuinely think that if it was the right person, I would not be using those as an excuse. And that's what it felt like. It felt like I was using those things as an excuse as to why I wasn't pursuing this relationship. When deep down, it was just because it didn't feel 100% right. But how do you explain that to somebody? Like, that doesn't make sense. It's just a feeling that I have that this doesn't feel right. So if we can logically come up with something and we can logically pinpoint it and be like, oh, it's because I have been hurt. It's because I have been in relationships that I've got, trauma from. And so, yeah, it's just really hard for me to drop my walls down. It's like, no, like, we're not going to buy into those stories because we have done healing. And yes, a relationship is going to mirror your deepest fucking darkest traumas that you have got, but you're not going to use them as an excuse as to why the relationship is not progressing, right? You're going to use it as an opportunity to lean in. And I felt like that was not happening for me. I felt like I was using it as an excuse. And so after sitting with this for a few days, I was really sure and really clear on what the next path was for me. And I was journaling in my journal. I'm not scared to be alone. I'm so scared to be with the wrong person because I've spent a lot of my time in my past relationships being with the wrong person and knowing that they're the wrong person and worrying that I was not going to be okay on my own. And now I've proven to myself that I can be on my own. I'm happy on my own. I don't need a guy in my life, a relationship. I choose to want to build a life with someone. And I truly believe that my person is out there. It's just not the right time yet. And I had always said that even when, this guy came back in my life, I had said to him, like, I didn't want this. Like, I wasn't ready for you. Like, I was so happy on my own. And I know that they always say that it always happens when you least expect it, but there was just a part of me that just didn't feel like it was the right part of the timeline. And so I made the decision to not go ahead with this. And so I had to have that really, really hard conversation with him on the phone because I know that he genuinely feels like I am the one for him and that there is nobody else out there for him. And so to know that you're about to break someone's heart is the hardest thing that you'll ever do. Ooh, some emotions arising there because I genuinely care for him and I genuinely love him, but I just know that he's not my person. And so to have to be that person on the other end of that conversation to say, I don't believe you're my person. I can't imagine how that would feel to be on the other end of that. I mean, I have been on the other end of that, but not as an evolved version of what I am now. I've been devastated to know that that person didn't want to be with me, but more so from the fact of me feeling like I needed that person in my life and I couldn't live without them. And so to have to deliver that message, he was devastated and he was really hurt by it. And he felt like I had somewhat lied to him because I told him that I loved him and I told him that I was willing to like maybe give it a go. And so I guess he felt a little bit betrayed, which I can understand and I get because at the end of the day, like he's hurting and it's natural for him to feel that way and he's valid to feel the way that he was feeling. But like I explained to him, ultimately, from the minute that we started talking, I had told him that this was all a trial. Like it was all, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. And that was a risk that he was willing to take. It was a risk that he potentially could have had his heart broken, but he also didn't not want to explore it and give me the opportunity to see how maybe I might feel. And so I had to remind him of that, there was lots of conversations that we had had throughout the journey where I had said that I was unsure multiple times, and he respected that that was where I was at. And so to have to be the bearer of that type of news is really, really hard. And there was lots of other things that obviously went on in regards to why I made this decision. And I just now genuinely know that whilst I might have broken his heart and, hurt him, I just am not prepared to abandon myself at the end of the day. And by staying in that, could have I made that relationship work? 100%. I truly believe that. I truly believe that we can make any relationship work with any person if we really wanted to. But the thing is I didn't want to, because I feel like that is not my person. And I'm not going to self abandon myself ever again in my life for the sake of being with someone or being with the wrong person. And like I said earlier, I would rather be single and alone for the rest of my life than to be with the wrong person. Do I crave being able to find that person to share memories and have fun with and be intimate with? Fuck yes. I think that's a human nature to feel that way. But I'm not prepared to do it at the cost of losing myself or at the cost of abandoning myself. And so I had to come back home to my feelings and my intuition and really listen to that, because, ultimately, like when I look at the ticking of the boxes, he ticked the boxes. He knew how to communicate with me. He knew how to hold space. He truly, truly loved me unconditionally. Like I genuinely feel out of all the guys that I have dated, he 100% loved me fully unconditionally. Um, so like on paper, like he looked like the great guy, but there was a feeling that I couldn't put on it that I'm just not willing to ignore at the end of the day. I am going to trust that feeling, because that feeling has never led me astray and it constantly keeps leading me to growth and evolution. And so that is where we're at. We are back to, being single. I had said I was off the market there for a little hot minute, but back to, I guess, yeah, being single. And I truly think that I needed that experience and he needed that experience. It was deeply healing for me. And I had said that from the start, that regardless of whatever happens, I genuinely felt like it was going to be deeply healing. I feel like he really showed me that, the right man will be able to hold space for you, will be able to see where you're coming from, will respect you, will listen to you, and, be prepared to heal a heart that he never broke. And so I think that there was so much healing throughout this journey that we've both embarked on. And I know that if I didn't explore what if with this guy, then I would have spent probably the rest of my life wondering, what if there was something and I wasn't willing to give it a go? I wasn't willing to open my heart up. I wasn't willing to explore it. And I never want to ever be in those situations. I always trust that whatever comes on the path is exactly what is meant to be in front of me, and it's up to me to be open to it. And so I am really, really glad that I did choose to willingly explore it and see what was on the cards and see how I felt. And yes, there was a connection. And yes, I love him dearly. And yes, like, we had incredible sex. And yes, we had some deep, deep, beautiful conversations. But it just didn't feel like it was enough for me. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So if you are someone that is maybe calling in your king or your queen, or maybe you're just navigating a season in your life right now where you're just not really sure, like, things logically make sense, but then there's also this part of you that's like unsure or has this doubt. Like, I really, really want to invite you to trust the feeling. Trust the feeling, because whatever the feeling is that's coming through, Yes, it can be a feeling of like you're not wanting to open yourself up in case you get hurt or, whatever it is. But like deeper than that, right? The feeling that's deeper than that, trust that deeper feeling. And if you do need some support in something that you might be navigating at the moment, or, whatever it might be, I'm more than happy to support you in that. Obviously, I've just navigated that through myself, and all of the tools that I have is what I teach inside my containers. I'm the living proof and the embodiment of the work that I teach is exactly how I navigate my own situations. It's exactly how I have this deep knowing within myself. It's exactly how I can say no to an unaligned relationship and choose myself and be okay with that decision, right? Is because I have done all of the work and I'm embodied in my work, and I can teach you how to be able to get that clarity within yourself as well. So if you are someone that's navigating something and you have that deep feeling, but you also need someone to kind of like help you return back home to yourself, then this is the work that we can 100% do in my spaces. So head to the show notes. You'll see that we have launched a whole heap of new services that I'm super excited about. So whether you have a business or whether you don't have a business, there is personal and professional development there to be able to really support you in coming back home to self and learning how to really trust yourself and really stepping into a life that feels fully aligned with who you are and who you're becoming as well. So I hope that maybe you have seen yourself somewhere within this story. And I truly have no regrets about, opening my heart back up and welcoming him back into my life. I truly think that it was necessary to happen. And now I'm totally open and ready for whatever the universe has in store for me moving forward. So that's the update on the love story of Anastasia Knight. Oh, so if you have had like a breakthrough or anything like that from listening to this story, I would love to hear from you. Come and share it with me. I love it when you guys come and send me DMs or you respond to my emails or, anything like that. I love to connect with the community. So please come and share. If there is someone that that's maybe calling in love or is maybe on the fence about someone that they're connecting with right now, maybe shoot them this episode so that they can also have a listen to it and really learn to get some takeaways and to trust themselves and to trust that they know what is best for them at the end of the day. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye for now.